Hi class, are you ready for module 12? So in this module, we are going to talk about a few things. Separate compilation, which is compiling programs that are divided into a few files. We are going to talk about arrays of class objects. For example, money objects, it can be in an array, or the rational number can be in an array. And then also we are going to talk about how to use an array as a member variable in a class. So when you declare a class, there will be a member variable that is an array, or 2 or 3. You can use many arrays, in as many as you want to. And of course, when we can use array, it's logical that we can also use a dynamic array as a member variable. The next 3 things you have not probably hear about, they are destructor, copy constructor, and assignment operator. These 3 are needed when you use dynamic array or pointers as a class member variable. Last time we talked about a money program, which was about 200 lines long of code in one file. And when you are doing the rational number class program in lab 11, I believe your program will be longer than that. Though that program actually is not that complicated if you know how to do friction calculation. Though still, it's quite long a program. So how do we logically divide the code in, and then still being able to compile a program? Of course, there is a way. Otherwise, how can different people work on the same project together, right? As a programmer, we would have to figure out something smarter than that. So separate compilation. We separate one file, the money program, we are going to do it this way, into 3. Basically, every class will go to 2 files. One is the header file, or called the interface file. The other one is the implementation file. And usually always, the interface file and header file is called something.h. So usually it's the class name. So money.h is what we are going to use. And we will put the class definition in that interface file. All the implementation part we will put into the money.cpp, and then the main.cpp, we are going to put the main function in there. So anything that's application related. So why do we want to do that, right? Because logically, this is really how to separate a program. The class definition, the implementation of the class, and then a main function, and any function that we call in that main function that is not related to the class. Or we can have multiple classes, and then we will have multiple .h file and multiple .cpp file. But for this one, this is your first example, so we will make it simple. The money.h file, the implementation interface file, you will see that actually nothing much has changed for the class. For the class definition, definitely nothing has changed. We just need the using namespace std. Apparently, we don't need the other include directives. So that is what it is. And then the money.cpp file, the implementation of the class, we do have to include all the directives that's needed. But the most important actually is this line, the include money.h. Without it, this part, there will be a complaint from the compiler. We will talk about why later. So what we do is we just put all the implementation, all the function definition in this file for the class. And then for the main CPP, we just put the main function in here. The include directive, the same. You also have to include the money.h, because otherwise you wouldn't know that where this money came from. Yeah, this money data type came from, or class. So include directive, just want to look a little bit closer so you know the first part. The file name you also know, just remember to put this double quote around it. That is the syntax that you need to remember. So why a include directive? So what does include do? Which you probably already heard of what I mentioned before, and also in the textbook. It will include the code of the directive when it compile into the file so that the compilation can go through. So in a way, it's like virtually replacing that directive by the text of that header file and implementation file in a way to compile a program. So what it does is, because when we go from you wrote a program into making it executable, there are four phrases or four steps. The first step is pre-processing, which is what we just talked about. It will include expanding that include directive and put the code in that location virtually though. But I don't want to go into too much of the detail. The second step, we would compile an assembly and assemble the code into some .o file. Actually, every class will become one .o file. And so in our case, there will be a money.o file, and then there will be a main.o file. And then at the last step will be linking. It will link that two files into one executable, and then we just execute that executable to run the program. So that's basically repeat what I just said. So to prevent code being included more than once, so before we go into look at how we actually do it in Xcode, we want to, like we looked at before, right? Or we talked about before, it will expand the include the money.h in both these two files and include the implementation of the money class also. So to prevent the code to be repeatedly included, because you saw we always include the IO stream directive also, but you don't want to keep repeating including those code everywhere, right? So what we do is we would have a keyword, any keyword. Actually, you can use any keyword, but the convention is this, money underscore age. So if not defined this identifier, then it will define this, and then it will follow by an if. So this is the way to tell the compiler, if you have seen this code, this identifier before, if it's already defined, then don't include this whole thing, just ignore it. But if you haven't seen this identifier, then please define this, and this money underscore age means this whole thing until the end if. So to take a closer look at how to name this identifier, we basically just use the class name and replace the dot with the underscore, and the age will stay. And to repeat, if not defined, basically that's what IFNDEF stands for. So this is how it looks like when we put it in our money.h file, you see nothing really changed in the middle. We just put the code, if not defined money.h in front, and then define money.h, and then at the end of it if. So that's how. So the only place you need to do this is in the money.h, in the .h file, the interface file. So this is our original money class. I'm already running it, so let's just do a test. And you see, enter the amount, and then your amount is negated, and so on. We did it in one of our previous demo in lab 11. So let's see how we can separate it into a different 3 different files and then compile it. So in Xcode, we would right click on the folder, and then we say new file. And in here, you can actually create a header file first, and then you can actually create a C++ file, and it will create a header file for you. Or you can do it this way. So let me just do both, just to be clear. So I'm just going to say this is called money.h, and then we'll create it there, and then I will say okay, another new file, right click again, and then when it asks if I also create a header file, I say no, because I'm doing it separately, right? So now you can see that it actually automatically would create this tag for you. So we don't have to do that part. So let's go and take the money class, and actually also this digit to integer, because we need this in the class. So we actually cut it from the main file, from the main.cpp, and place it here. So so everything within this, if not defined, is going to be copied. So I will save it, and then here actually we still need the using namespace, so I'll put it back. And then for the .h file, we don't need to have the include, because this is actually what we want to include in the other 2 files. So in here, let's also well, because there's a lot of complaints, so let's do the include here, the money.h, and then see all the complaint went away. So here then we are copying all the implementation, including the digit to integer, which is used by this class. I don't need this. So we copy and paste here. However, we still need we will need all this in this file to make everything works. So it all went away, and so and that's it. So just check that you have to include money.h in the money.cpp file, and the same in the main.cpp file. So let's run it. So you see it will function exactly like before. So that's how we do separate compilation, because nowadays you have IDE. When I was learning this, we didn't really use IDE at all, and so we have to do some kind of magic to make it happen. Anyways, so separate compilation. Why do we do this? Because it promotes software reusability. That's the major reason actually why we do this, because we want to be able to reuse the classes. And so that's why we totally separate the classes or the definition and the implementation from our main program. We also promote data abstraction and information hiding. So because the interface and the implementation are separated, and so the implementation can be hidden from the user. So if you just change anything in the implementation, you don't have to change the interface at all. Compilation is actually faster because the class will be compiled separately from the program file. And so you can sometimes, if there's change only in the program but not the class, you don't have to compile the class again, and so on. And it's easier to maintain your code. So to recap what we talked about in this video, we talk about how to divide a class code into two files, the .h file and the .cpp file, which is the interface and the implementation file. How and why to include header files and where. How to prevent header files from being included more than once, and why do we do separate compilation. Next, we are going to talk about array of class objects. See you there.